Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. The ship had been traveling through space near Proxima Centauri for 3 weeks now, searching for signs of life. Jake had commanded exploration missions for 8 years, but nothing had prepared him for what happened next. Lieutenant Amy Roberts at the sensor station suddenly looked up with wide eyes.
"Captain, we have something big approaching from the starboard side," she said with excitement in her voice.
Jake moved to her station and looked at the readings. The object was massive, much larger than any human ship ever built. "Red alert," Jake commanded. The bridge lights changed to red and alarm sounds filled the air. "Get me a visual on that ship." The main screen changed to show something that made everyone on the bridge stop breathing for a moment. The alien vessel stretched for miles with dark metal surfaces and strange geometric patterns. It looked nothing like human technology. Commander Lisa Carter rushed to the bridge from her science lab. She had been studying alien life forms for most of her career and hoped this day would come.
"Jake, this is it," she whispered.
"We are making first contact with an alien species." The communications officer turned to face the captain. "Sir, they are sending us a message," he announced. "It appears to be some kind of translation program." Jake nodded and ordered the message to be put on the main screen. Holographic image appeared showing a tall reptilian creature with dark green scales and yellow eyes. The alien stood over 7 feet tall with powerful muscles visible under its scaled skin. When it spoke, the translation program converted its words into English. "I am Admiral Zextar of the Vorthak Empire," the creature said in a deep voice. "You will identify yourselves and state your purpose in our territory." Jake stepped forward and tried to look confident despite the fear he felt. Inside, "I am Captain Jake Morrison, of the United Earth Ship Defender," he replied. "We come in peace seeking contact with other intelligent species." Admiral Zextar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Humans," the alien said while looking at Jake with what seemed like amusement. "We have heard rumors about your small species but never encountered you directly." Another alien appeared next to the Admiral. This one wore what looked like military armor and had scars across its face. "This is Commander Hislek, my military advisor," Admiral Zextar explained. "He is interested in studying your capabilities." Commander Hislek looked at the humans on the screen like a predator studying its prey. Lisa stepped forward, wanting to make a good impression. "We represent the people of Earth and our colonies. We seek peaceful relations and mutual understanding between our species." The two aliens looked at each other and Hislek made clicking sounds that might have been their version of laughter. "Your species is quite small," Admiral Zextar observed, "and you appear to have short lifespans based on our preliminary scans. What weapons do you possess?" Jake hesitated before answering. "We have kinetic weapons, missiles, and plasma cannons," he said honestly, "but we prefer diplomatic solutions to conflicts." This time both aliens made the clicking sound. Commander Hislek spoke for the first time. "Your technology appears primitive compared to our energy weapons and shield systems. Your ships are small and your colonies are few." His voice carried no emotion, but his words felt like a threat. Admiral Zextar studied the humans for a long moment. "The Vorthak Empire has ruled this sector of space for over 3,000 years. We have conquered or absorbed hundreds of species during that time. You humans present us with an interesting decision." Lisa felt her heart beating faster. "What kind of decision?" she asked carefully. The Admiral's yellow eyes seemed to glow brighter. "Whether to make you slaves or simply eliminate you entirely," he said casually as if discussing the weather. "Your species shows no significant military threat and your technology is centuries behind ours. However, you might serve useful purposes as laborers in our mining operations." Jake felt anger rising in his chest but forced himself to stay calm. "We are a peaceful species, but we will defend ourselves if threatened," he warned. Commander Hislek made more clicking sounds. "With what will you defend yourselves?" he asked mockingly. "Your small ships and primitive weapons." Admiral Zextar raised one scaled hand to quiet his commander. "We will give you 30 standard days to consider our offer," the Admiral announced. "Surrender all human colonies and submit to Vorthak rule or face complete destruction. We have eliminated species far more advanced than yours." The holographic communication ended suddenly, leaving the bridge of the Defender in shocked silence. Jake looked around at his crew and saw fear mixed with determination on their faces. Lisa spoke first. "Jake, we need to warn Earth immediately," she said urgently. This Admiral Zextar was not making empty threats. Their ship is incredibly advanced, and if they have many others like it, she did not finish the sentence, but everyone understood. Jake ordered the communications officer to establish emergency contact with Earth Command. Within hours, President Alex Turner was holding emergency meetings with the United Earth Defense Council. General Paul Rodriguez reviewed their military capabilities with a growing sense of worry. "We have 47 active warships and colonial defense forces scattered across 12 worlds," the general reported. "Our total military personnel numbers just over 2 million. If this Vorthak Empire is as powerful as they claim, we are facing impossible odds." Dr. Elena Walsh, a military historian, stood up during the council meeting. "Throughout human history, we have faced impossible odds many times," she reminded the assembled leaders. At Thermopylae, at the Alamo, during the Battle of Britain, and countless other conflicts, humans have one quality that no alien empire can understand or predict. "What quality is that?" President Turner asked. Dr. Walsh smiled grimly. "We refuse to surrender," she answered simply. "Even when facing certain death, humans choose to fight rather than submit to slavery or extinction. This Vorthak Empire has never encountered a species like us before." The council voted unanimously to reject the alien ultimatum. President Turner authorized General Rodriguez to begin immediate preparations for war. As news of the alien threat spread across human space, something remarkable happened. Instead of panic, the colonies showed determination. Instead of fleeing, volunteers signed up for military service in record numbers. Captain Morrison and the crew of the Defender returned to Earth with detailed scans of the alien vessel. Military engineers studied the data looking for any possible weaknesses. What they found was troubling but not hopeless. The Vorthak clearly possessed superior technology and firepower. Their ships were larger and more advanced than anything humans had built. However, Dr. Walsh noticed something important in the alien behavior during the first contact meeting. "They underestimate us completely," she told the Military Planning Committee. "Admiral Zextar and his commander see us as primitive and weak. That overconfidence might be the only advantage we have." As the 30-day deadline approached, humanity prepared for war with an enemy that viewed them as nothing more than insects to be crushed. The attack came exactly 30 days after Admiral Zextar delivered his ultimatum. Massive Vorthak ships appeared near human colonies across 12 star systems simultaneously. Each alien vessel stretched over 3 miles long with weapons that glowed with deadly energy. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Phillips commanded the defense of New Denver Colony when the enemy fleet arrived. He watched through his binoculars as 5 enormous Vorthak dreadnoughts dropped out of hyperspace above the planet. Their dark hulls blocked out sections of the sky like floating mountains. "All defensive positions report ready," came the voice of Sergeant Dan Cooper over the radio. Ryan had positioned his forces in carefully prepared bunkers around the main settlement. They had spent weeks building these defenses after receiving word about the alien threat. The first Vorthak attack was devastating. Bright plasma beams struck down from space-turning buildings into molten metal and glass. The defensive shields around the colony lasted only minutes before overloading. Ryan watched his carefully planned defenses crumble under weapons beyond human understanding. "Sir, we are receiving massive casualties at the north perimeter," reported Lieutenant Beth Morgan from her command post. Her voice remained steady despite the chaos around her. "The aliens are using some kind of energy weapon that cuts through our armor like paper." Ryan knew they could not win a direct fight against such superior technology. He activated the emergency evacuation plan that had been prepared for exactly this situation. "All units begin Phase 1 withdrawal," he ordered over the radio. "Civilian evacuation takes priority." What happened next looked like complete panic to the Vorthak observers. Humans ran from their positions carrying wounded comrades and fleeing toward the forests surrounding the colony. Children cried as their parents rushed them toward hidden evacuation points. General Kethmar led the Vorthak ground forces as they landed near the colony. He wore advanced armor that made him look even more frightening than usual. His soldiers carried energy rifles that could punch holes through human vehicles with single shots. "The humans flee like frightened animals," Commander Hiselek observed as he watched the evacuation from his command ship. "Their resistance lasted less than 2 hours. This species presents no challenge whatsoever." The Vorthak forces advanced through the abandoned colony. finding empty buildings and scattered equipment. Human weapons lay abandoned in defensive positions along with personal belongings that suggested hasty retreat. General Kethmar picked up a human rifle and examined it with contempt. "Kinetic projectile weapons," he said to his subordinates. "These primitives still use solid ammunition fired by chemical explosives. No wonder they could not stand against our plasma technology." His soldiers made clicking sounds of amusement. Similar scenes played out across human space as colony after colony fell to Vorthak assault. Captain Nina Foster led evacuation efforts from the industrial world of New Pittsburgh as alien forces overwhelmed the planetary defenses. Her ships carried thousands of refugees toward Earth and other core worlds. "We lost contact with the defense grid 20 minutes ago," reported her communications officer as refugee ships fled the system. "The aliens are systematically destroying all military installations and orbital platforms." Nina watched through the rear displays as Vorthak ships positioned themselves around New Pittsburgh. Their plasma weapons turned the colony's factories into burning ruins. Millions of humans had lived and worked there just days before. Admiral Kevin Brooks commanded what remained of the human fleet after the initial attacks. His forces gathered near Earth preparing for the final defense of humanity's homeworld. The situation looked hopeless as reports came in from across human territory. "We have confirmed the loss of 8 colonies in the first wave," reported his intelligence officer. "The aliens are using overwhelming firepower and advanced technology that we cannot match. Our casualties are estimated in the hundreds of thousands." However, something was happening that the Vorthak did not understand. The human refugees were not randomly fleeing in panic. They followed carefully planned evacuation routes that led to prepared shelters and hidden bases. What looked like defeat was actually the first phase of a larger strategy. Colonel Sam Bennett had spent months preparing for this day. He commanded a network of underground bunkers and tunnels that connected all major human colonies. As the aliens celebrated their easy victories above ground, Sam's forces moved through these hidden passages like ghosts. "Phase 1 is complete," Sam reported to Earth Command from his concealed headquarters beneath New Denver Colony. "All civilian populations have been evacuated to secure locations. We are beginning Phase 2 operations immediately." The Vorthak established occupation forces on the conquered worlds. They built command posts and communication arrays while cataloging the resources they had captured. Their soldiers patrolled the empty colonies looking for signs of remaining human resistance. Commander Hisalek established his headquarters in what had been the New Denver Colony government building. He studied reports from across the conquered territory with satisfaction. Every human world had fallen within days, and casualties among Vorthak forces were minimal. "Admiral Zextar will be pleased with our progress," he told General Kethmar. "This species offered even less resistance than we predicted. Perhaps we can use some survivors as slave labor in the asteroid mining operations." What they did not know was that thousands of humans remained hidden in the underground networks beneath their feet. These were not panicked refugees but trained soldiers and militia forces who had prepared for exactly this situation. Major Chris Anderson led one of these hidden groups from a bunker complex under the former spaceport. His people had supplies for months and equipment that had been secretly moved during the evacuation. They watched the alien patrols through hidden cameras and planned their next moves. "The aliens think they have won," Chris told his assembled fighters. "They believe we are primitive and weak. That overconfidence will be their downfall." His soldiers nodded grimly. Many had lost friends and family in the initial attacks. Dr. Rob Taylor worked in a concealed laboratory studying pieces of Vorthak equipment that had been recovered during the fighting. He was one of humanity's best scientists, and he had been assigned to find weaknesses in alien technology. "Their weapons are incredibly advanced," he reported to Colonel Bennett, "but they seem to rely heavily on energy shields and plasma-based systems. There might be ways to counter their advantages if we can learn how their technology works." The apparent defeat of humanity was broadcast across Vorthak space as proof of their military superiority. Other alien species under their rule saw the destruction of human colonies and accepted that resistance was futile. The Vorthak Empire seemed stronger than ever. Admiral Zextar received reports from the conquered territory with satisfaction. "The human problem has been solved with minimal effort," he announced to his fleet commanders. "We can now focus on more important matters in other sectors." However, strange reports began coming in from the occupation forces. Supply convoys sometimes disappeared while traveling between colonies. Communication equipment suffered mysterious failures. Patrol groups occasionally went missing without sending distress signals. General Kethmar investigated these incidents personally, but found no evidence of organized resistance. The missing humans appeared to have simply vanished, leaving no traces behind. He blamed equipment failures and accidents for the problems his forces experienced. "These humans are like insects," he reported to Admiral Zextar. "Even when crushed, a few always survive in hidden places. We will eliminate the remaining survivors as we find them." What the Vorthak did not understand was that humanity had never truly been defeated. The evacuation and apparent retreat were carefully planned strategies designed to make the aliens overconfident, while preserving human strength for the real battle yet to come. Captain Jake Morrison and the crew of the U.S. Defender worked with resistance forces to coordinate their hidden activities. His ship operated from secret bases that the aliens had not discovered. They carried supplies and equipment to the underground networks. "The colonies appear empty from space," Jake reported to Earth Command. "But our people are still there, waiting for the right moment to strike back. The aliens have occupied empty cities while the real resistance remains hidden beneath their feet." The stage was set for the next phase of humanity's plan, while the Vorthak celebrated their easy victory and prepared to move on to other conquests. Thousands of human fighters waited in the darkness, planning their revenge. 3 months after the Vorthak invasion, strange things began happening on the occupied worlds. Commander Hiselek stood in his command center on New Denver Colony, studying reports that made no sense. Supply convoys were disappearing between settlements. Communication towers suffered unexplained explosions. Entire Vorthak patrol squads vanished without sending distress calls. "How does a fully armed patrol simply disappear?" Hiselek demanded from his intelligence officer. The Vorthak soldier examined his datapad nervously before answering. "There are no signs of battle or struggle," the officer reported. "The patrols simply stop reporting, and when we search for them, we find nothing. No bodies, no weapons, no evidence of what happened to them." General Kethmar investigated the latest incident personally. His soldiers had found an abandoned Vorthak transport vehicle on the outskirts of what had been the human settlement. The crew of 6 warriors had vanished completely, leaving behind their equipment and weapons. "Search every building in this area," Kethmar ordered his troops. "These primitive humans must be hiding somewhere nearby." His soldiers spread out through the empty colony but found only abandoned homes and offices. The buildings showed signs of the original evacuation, but no recent human activity. What the Vorthak did not understand was that the humans had never really left. Captain Beth Morgan crouched in a hidden tunnel 50 feet beneath the alien soldiers. She could hear their heavy footsteps through the soil above as they searched for signs of human presence. "Target acquired," whispered Lieutenant Dan Cooper through her radio headset. He was positioned near the entrance to the tunnel system with a small team of fighters. 6 aliens moving toward the old school building. Beth studied the tactical display on her portable computer. The underground network beneath New Denver Colony covered dozens of square miles with tunnels connecting every major building. The humans could move anywhere in the settlement without being detected by surface patrols. "Wait for them to separate," Beth ordered quietly. "Remember, no direct confrontation. Hit fast and disappear before they can respond." This was the strategy that had made the Vorthak occupation so difficult. Small groups of humans struck quickly at isolated targets, then vanished back into the underground maze. The attack came without warning. Dan and his team emerged from hidden entrances behind the alien patrol. They used captured Vorthak weapons to eliminate their targets in seconds before disappearing back underground. The entire operation lasted less than 2 minutes. By the time reinforcements arrived, the human fighters were already miles away, moving through tunnels that did not appear on any Vorthak maps. The aliens found only empty streets and the equipment left behind by another missing patrol. Dr. Rob Taylor worked in a hidden laboratory deep beneath the former colony administration building. He had spent weeks studying captured Vorthak technology and was beginning to understand how their weapons and equipment functioned. "Their energy shields have a specific frequency," he explained to Colonel Sam Bennett during a secure communication session. "If we can build devices that disrupt that frequency, their personal armor becomes useless." Sam Bennett coordinated resistance activities across all occupied worlds from his underground command center. He had maintained contact with Earth and other free human territories through hidden communication networks that the aliens had not discovered. Intelligence reports indicate the Vorthak are becoming increasingly frustrated, Sam told his cell commanders during their weekly briefing. They expected to pacify our worlds quickly and move on to other conquests. Instead, they are being forced to maintain large occupation forces. The psychological effect on Vorthak troops was becoming significant. These warriors had conquered hundreds of worlds over centuries of expansion. They had never faced an enemy that refused to surrender even after military defeat. The constant threat of ambush was wearing down their morale. Sergeant Amy Roberts led a demolition team through the sewage tunnels beneath the main Vorthak command post. Her mission was to plant explosive charges that would destroy the alien communication array without being detected, until it was too late. "Charges set," she reported through her throat microphone. "Detonation in 60 seconds. Amy and her team moved quickly through the tunnels toward their escape route. The explosion would bring massive retaliation from the aliens, but the disruption to their communications was worth the risk. The blast destroyed not only the communication array but also damaged the power grid for the entire Vorthak base. Emergency lights flickered as alien soldiers rushed to assess the damage. By the time they realized what had happened, the human saboteurs were safely hidden miles away. Commander Hislek reviewed casualty reports that showed a disturbing pattern. His occupation forces were losing soldiers every day to these mysterious attacks. More troubling was the fact that human resistance seemed to be growing stronger rather than weaker over time. "They are learning our patrol patterns and adapting their tactics," he told General Kethmar during a strategy meeting. "These are not random acts of desperation. Someone is coordinating these attacks across multiple locations." What made the situation even more frustrating for the Vorthak was their inability to locate the human command structure. They could detect no large concentrations of humans on their sensors. The resistance appeared to operate in small independent cells that struck without warning, then disappeared. Major Chris Anderson studied Vorthak patrol schedules from his hidden observation post. His intelligence network had mapped every alien movement pattern and identified weaknesses in their security. The humans were learning while their enemies remained predictable. "They change guard shifts every 8 hours like clockwork," Chris reported to his team leaders. "Their patrols follow the same routes every day. They have no understanding of irregular warfare tactics." The resistance began using more sophisticated methods as their confidence grew. Captain Nina Foster, who had escaped during the initial evacuation, returned to occupied territory in a modified civilian transport. Her mission was to establish supply lines between the underground fighters and free human worlds. "We have weapons and equipment waiting at the drop zone," she radioed to Colonel Bennett. "Medical supplies, communications gear, and some new toys that our engineers have, developed specifically for dealing with Vorthak. Armor, the toys, included sonic disruptors that could overload Vorthak energy shields and explosive devices, designed to penetrate their advanced hull materials. Human engineers had spent months analyzing captured alien technology to develop these countermeasures. Dr. Elena Walsh worked with resistance leaders to develop new tactical approaches based on historical guerrilla warfare. Her studies of conflicts throughout human history provided insights that the aliens could not predict or counter. "The key is patience," she explained during a training session for new resistance recruits. "We make them commit more resources to occupation duties while wearing down their morale through constant uncertainty. Every day they stay here makes them weaker elsewhere in their empire." The Vorthak began importing additional troops from other sectors to maintain control over human worlds. This was exactly what the resistance wanted. Every alien soldier assigned to occupation duty was one less warrior available for expansion into new territories. Admiral Sextar received increasingly urgent reports from his ground commanders, requesting more resources and reinforcements. The easy conquest of human space was turning into a prolonged occupation that drained military strength from other operations. "These humans are more troublesome than anticipated," he admitted to his staff officers. "We may need to consider more drastic measures to end their resistance permanently." However, the Vorthak still did not understand the true nature of their enemy. They continued to think in terms of conventional warfare between organized armies. The concept of an entire population refusing to accept defeat was beyond their experience. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Phillips, who had organized the original evacuation of New Denver Colony, now led coordinated strikes against Vorthak supply lines. His teams had become experts at hit-and-run tactics that maximized damage while minimizing risk to human forces. "Target the fuel depots tonight," Ryan ordered his assault teams. "Without energy cells, their vehicles and weapons become useless. Make them walk everywhere and carry everything by hand." The resistance attacks were becoming bolder and more effective as human fighters gained experience and confidence. What had begun as desperate acts of defiance was evolving into a sophisticated military campaign that threatened Vorthak control over human space. Most importantly, news of human resistance was spreading to other species under Vorthak rule. For the first time in centuries, conquered peoples were seeing that the Empire could be challenged successfully. The psychological impact of human defiance was creating problems throughout Vorthak territory. The underground war was just beginning, and the aliens were learning that conquering human worlds had been the easy part. Holding them against a population that refused to surrender would prove far more difficult than Admiral Zextar had ever imagined. 6 months after the Vorthak invasion began, everything changed in a single coordinated moment. Captain Marcus Hill stood on the bridge of the newly constructed UES Vengeance watching as the human fleet prepared for Operation Rising Storm. Around him, 60 warships powered up their engines and weapons systems for humanity's desperate counterattack. "All ships report ready for jump," announced his communications officer. Marcus looked at the tactical display showing their target system where New Denver Colony waited under alien occupation. This would either be humanity's salvation or their final defeat. The signal came from Earth Command at exactly 0800 hours. Across human space, resistance cells that had waited months in hiding received the same coded message. Phase 3 was beginning. The underground war was about to become a full-scale rebellion. Colonel Sam Bennett emerged from his hidden command bunker beneath New Denver Colony for the first time since the invasion. Around him, hundreds of human fighters climbed out of tunnels and hidden shelters. They had spent months preparing for this moment and now carried weapons and equipment that would shock their alien occupiers. "Remember, we only get one chance at this," Sam told his assembled force. "The fleet will keep their attention focused on space while we recapture the surface installations. Every objective must be taken simultaneously, or the entire operation fails." Captain Beth Morgan led her assault team toward the main Vorthak command center. Her fighters wore captured alien armor and carried modified weapons that could penetrate Vorthak shields. They moved through empty streets like ghosts, using knowledge gained from months of underground surveillance. In space above the planet, Admiral Zextar received reports of approaching human ships with surprise and contempt. "Only 60 vessels," he told Commander Hiselak over the communication link. "They are making their final desperate attack with everything they have left." The Vorthak fleet moved to intercept the human force with overwhelming confidence. Over 300 alien warships armed with plasma weapons and protected by energy shields advanced toward what they believed would be an easy victory. The space battle that followed appeared to confirm Vorthak's superiority. Human ships suffered heavy damage while their kinetic weapons seemed to have minimal effect on advanced alien shields. Within the first hour, 12 human vessels had been destroyed with minimal Vorthak losses. However, the space battle was not the real attack. While Admiral Zextar focused his attention on the fleet engagement, the true assault was happening on the planetary surface below. Resistance fighters emerged from hiding across every occupied world simultaneously. Major Chris Anderson struck at the main spaceport just as planned. His team had spent weeks studying Vorthak defenses and knew exactly where to attack for maximum effect. The aliens had grown comfortable in their occupation and were unprepared for coordinated assault from within their own perimeter charges. "Planted on the fuel depot," reported Sergeant Dan Cooper over the radio. "Detonation in 30 seconds. The explosion that followed destroyed enough energy cells to ground the entire Vorthak air fleet on New Denver Colony." Similar attacks were happening everywhere at once. Dr. Rob Taylor's sonic disruptors proved devastatingly effective against Vorthak personal shields. Alien soldiers who had seemed invincible for months suddenly found their armor useless against human weapons. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Phillips led the assault on the planetary defense grid. His fighters moved through the underground tunnels to attack from directions the aliens had never considered. Years of mining and construction had given humans detailed knowledge of every underground space on their own worlds. Grid control secured. Ryan reported as his team eliminated the Vorthak technicians operating the defense systems, turning the guns on their own ships. Now, the planetary defense weapons that had helped conquer the colony now targeted Vorthak vessels in orbit. General Kethmar found his ground forces under attack from enemies who seemed to appear from nowhere. Human fighters emerged from buildings his troops had searched dozens of times. They struck with precision and coordination that suggested months of careful planning. "How are there so many of them?" he demanded over his communication system. Intelligence reported that all humans had been evacuated or eliminated. His officers had no answers as reports of simultaneous attacks came in from across the occupied territory. The truth was that humanity had never been truly defeated. The apparent evacuation and surrender had been the largest deception in military history. While the Vorthak celebrated their easy victory, thousands of human fighters had remained hidden beneath their feet, planning exactly this moment. Captain Nina Foster's supply runs had been crucial to the success of the resistance. Her ships had delivered not only weapons and equipment but also trained soldiers who had infiltrated back to their home worlds through the tunnel networks. "Reinforcements are landing at Checkpoint 7, she reported to Colonel Bennett. 200 fresh fighters with full combat gear. These reinforcements included specialists trained in alien technology and urban warfare tactics. The psychological impact on Vorthak forces was immediate and devastating. These warriors had conquered hundreds of worlds through superior technology and overwhelming firepower. They had never faced an enemy that could strike from within their own defensive positions. Commander Hislek watched his command center come under attack from humans who seemed to know every weakness in their security. "Impossible," he muttered as human fighters disabled his communication arrays with surgical precision. The resistance was supposed to be broken. Dr. Elena Walsh's historical research had provided the tactical framework for the entire operation. Her analysis of successful guerrilla campaigns throughout human history had been adapted for warfare against technologically superior aliens. "Hit them everywhere at once," her tactical manual instructed. "Make them choose between defending their positions and maintaining their offensive capability. Force them to spread their forces thin while concentrating our own at decisive points." The strategy was working perfectly. Vorthak commanders found themselves fighting separate battles across multiple worlds, while losing communication with their higher command structure. The coordinated nature of the attacks made it impossible to respond effectively. Admiral Zextar realized too late that the space battle was a diversion. "All ships return to planetary orbit immediately," he ordered his fleet commanders. "We are under attack from within our own occupied territories." However, the human fleet continued to engage his vessels, preventing immediate redeployment. Captain Marcus Hill smiled grimly as he watched the alien formation break up. "Continue the attack," he ordered his remaining ships. "Keep them busy up here while our people finish the job below." The human fleet was taking heavy casualties, but their sacrifice was buying time for the ground assault. On the surface, Lieutenant Amy Roberts led her demolition team against the main Vorthak ammunition depot. The explosion that followed could be seen from orbit and eliminated enough alien ordnance to supply their forces for months. Primary objectives secured, Colonel Bennett reported to Earth Command as the sun set over New Denver Colony. The aliens are in full retreat toward their remaining strongholds. The impossible had happened. Human forces were recapturing their own world. The success on New Denver Colony was repeated across human space, as resistance cells struck simultaneously on every occupied planet. The Vorthak occupation forces found themselves trapped between coordinated uprisings and attacking human fleets. General Kethmar sent increasingly desperate messages to his commanders as his forces were systematically eliminated or captured. "Request immediate reinforcement," he transmitted. "Human resistance is far more organized and effective than reported." However, reinforcements would not come quickly enough. The element of surprise and months of careful preparation had given humanity an advantage that superior technology could not overcome. The hunters had become the hunted. By the end of the first day, 5 human worlds had been completely liberated. Vorthak forces retreated to heavily fortified positions while their ships in orbit provided covering fire. The easy conquest had become a desperate struggle for survival. News of the human victories spread rapidly through Vorthak space and beyond. For the first time in centuries, a species had successfully resisted the Empire and reclaimed their conquered territories. The psychological impact on other subjugated peoples was immediate and profound. The counterattack was just the beginning. Humanity had proven they could fight back effectively against their supposed superiors. Now the real test would begin as the war expanded beyond human space, and other species began to question Vorthak invincibility. The liberation of human colonies sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy that went far beyond military victory. Captain Lucy Adams commanded the UES Retribution as it approached the Kepler system where 3 different alien species had begun their own rebellions against Vorthak rule. Word of humanity's success had spread faster than anyone expected. "We are receiving communication requests from multiple species," reported her communications officer. "The Zilani, Thorians, and Kestrel peoples are all asking for assistance with their liberation movements." Lucy studied the tactical displays showing Vorthak forces retreating throughout this sector of space. The Empire that had seemed invincible just months ago was now fighting simultaneous rebellions on dozens of worlds. "Send the tactical data packages we prepared," she ordered. "Show them how we broke the Vorthak shield, frequencies, and disrupted their communication networks." Admiral Zextar stood in his command chamber aboard his flagship watching reports come in from across the Empire. What had begun as a simple conquest of primitive humans had triggered the largest uprising in Vorthak history. Species that had been conquered centuries ago were suddenly remembering what freedom meant. "The humans have shared their resistance techniques with other species," reported his intelligence officer nervously. "The Antarian Confederation has declared independence and expelled our garrison forces. The Rigel colonies have stopped sending tribute shipments." Commander Hisalek, now recovered from his injuries during the Battle of New Denver Colony, reviewed strategic reports with growing alarm. "Admiral, we estimate that over 40% of our military forces are now committed to suppressing rebellions. Our expansion into new territories has completely stopped." This was exactly what humanity's leaders had hoped would happen. President Alex Turner met with the newly formed Coalition of Free Worlds in what had once been the Vorthak Administrative Center on New Denver Colony. Representatives from 8 different species sat around the conference table planning their shared future. "The Vorthak Empire is built on fear and the assumption that resistance is impossible," explained Dr. Elena Walsh to the assembled alien diplomats. "By proving that assumption wrong, humanity has given every conquered species hope that they can win their freedom." General Paul Rodriguez presented military intelligence showing the Empire's decline. Vorthak forces are spread too thin to maintain control over their conquered territories, while fighting multiple liberation movements. They are being forced to choose between abandoning entire sectors or watching their military strength slowly bleed away. The psychological transformation was as important as the military victory. Species that had accepted Vorthak rule for generations suddenly began questioning why they should submit to alien domination. The human example showed that determination and unity could overcome technological superiority. Colonel Sam Bennett worked with resistance leaders from other worlds to share the tunnel warfare techniques that had proven so effective. "The key is patience and preparation," he explained to a group of Zilani fighters. "Make them commit more forces to occupation while never giving them a decisive battle they can win." Captain Beth Morgan established training camps where human veterans taught guerrilla warfare tactics to aliens who had never known anything but Vorthak rule. Her students learned to use improvised weapons and coordinate small unit actions that could disrupt much larger enemy forces. "Your people have shown us something we had forgotten," said Commander Zeth of the Thorian Resistance. "That freedom is worth fighting for even when victory seems impossible. The Vorthak made us believe that resistance would only bring suffering, but you proved that surrender brings a different kind of death." The war was changing the nature of galactic civilization. Instead of a few dominant empires ruling over conquered peoples, new alliances were forming based on mutual cooperation rather than force. Humanity found itself at the center of this transformation. Dr. Lisa Carter, who had participated in the first contact with Admiral Zextar, now served as humanity's chief ambassador to the emerging coalition. She met regularly with leaders from species that had once seemed impossibly different from humans. "We are learning that the desire for freedom is universal," she reported to President Turner. "Species that evolved on different worlds under completely different conditions all share the same basic need for self-determination. The Vorthak never understood this because they built their society on individual dominance rather than collective cooperation. The military situation continued to deteriorate for the Empire. Captain Marcus Hill led joint human-alien fleets in operations to liberate key strategic systems. His forces included Zelani destroyers, Thorian heavy cruisers, and Kestrel scout ships working together with human vessels. Target their supply depots and communication relays, Marcus instructed his mixed fleet commanders. Don't try to match their heavy warships in direct combat. Cut their logistics and coordination instead. The tactics that had worked in the underground resistance were being adapted for space. Warfare Admiral Zextar found himself facing a strategic nightmare that had no clear solution. We cannot fight simultaneous wars across hundreds of systems, he told the Imperial High Command. Our forces were designed for conquest, not prolonged occupation against determined resistance. The Emperor's response was predictable but ultimately futile. More troops were deployed to suppress the rebellions, but this only weakened Vorthak positions elsewhere. The Empire was consuming its own strength, trying to maintain control over peoples who no longer accepted their authority. Commander Hisalek, once so confident in Vorthak's superiority, now found himself studying human military tactics with grudging respect. As a prisoner of war following the liberation of Vorthak Fortress Prime, he was questioned by Colonel Greg Thompson about his people's strategic thinking. Your species approaches warfare differently than any we have encountered, Hislek admitted during one of their conversations. Vorthak warriors fight for personal glory and advancement within our hierarchy. Humans fight for concepts that we never understood, collective sacrifice for future generations. This philosophical difference was at the heart of the conflict. The Vorthak built their empire on individual ambition and the assumption that superior technology guaranteed victory. Humans showed that unity of purpose and willingness to sacrifice for others could overcome any technological advantage. The end of the war came not through a final decisive battle but through gradual collapse of imperial authority. As more worlds declared independence and more species joined the rebellion, maintaining the empire became impossible. President Turner received Admiral Zextar's request for peace negotiations with mixed feelings. The human leader had never wanted this war but understood that some conflicts could not be avoided. We will meet with them, he decided. But the terms must guarantee freedom for all species that choose independence. The peace conference was held on neutral territory with representatives from dozens of species that had been liberated from Vorthak rule. Admiral Zextar arrived with a much smaller delegation than anyone expected. His empire was already fragmenting as regional governors declared independence to save their remaining forces. We accept that the old empire cannot continue, the alien admiral admitted to the assembled delegates. The humans have shown us that conquest based solely on superior technology is ultimately unsustainable. We propose a new arrangement based on mutual cooperation rather than domination. Dr. Elena Walsh observed the negotiations with fascination. This is unprecedented in galactic history, she noted in her reports. An empire voluntarily dismantling itself rather than fighting to the last warrior. The Vorthak are learning that adaptation is more important than absolute power. The final peace settlement established the coalition of free worlds as a major power in galactic affairs. Former Vorthak territories were allowed to choose their own governments, while the remaining Imperial forces withdrew to core systems that voted to maintain the old system. Captain Jake Morrison, promoted to admiral after his role in the First Contact, commanded the first joint exploration fleet composed of ships from 12 different species. His mission was to explore regions of space that had never been surveyed, looking for new worlds and civilizations to invite into the growing coalition. The galaxy is larger than any single species ever imagined, Jake reported from the bridge of his flagship. We are finding new forms of life and intelligence that were completely unknown during the Age of Empires. Cooperation allows us to explore places that no single species could reach alone. The transformation was not complete and would take generations to fully develop. However, the principle had been established that technological advancement without wisdom and cooperation led inevitably to stagnation and collapse. Commander Lisa Carter, now Director of Interspecies Relations, worked to establish protocols for peaceful contact with newly discovered civilizations. Our first rule is that no species should be judged by their appearance or current technology level, she explained to new diplomatic personnel. The Vorthak made the mistake of equating primitive technology with inherent weakness. The human example had proven that determination, unity, and willingness to sacrifice for others could overcome any obstacle. More importantly,